Hi, and thanks for logging on to the Daily DVAR Halacha. And here's a brand new halacha for you, and it's for Monday, 26th day of September, 23rd day of Elul. Here we go. When building a sukkah, please be careful to get this rule right, because if, God forbid, you do it wrong, your sukkah could be invalid. Here's the main rule. When God describes the building of a sukkah, he uses the word tasa, you shall make your sukkah. From that, the rabbis are able to deduce that God meant tasa, make your sukkah kosher, v'lo min ha'asui, but don't make your sukkah become kosher through having been done. But I'll explain what that means. Your sukkah, well, here's a classic example. Let's say a guy found a haystack. This is not going to happen to you, but it's just a great way to illustrate the rule. He found a haystack, and he decided that the inside of that haystack would become the place where he would live during Sukkot, and so he carved out a hollow in the middle of the haystack, and then he said, presto, I got a sukkah. The top of the haystack is my schach, the side of the haystack are my walls, and I just carved out the middle, and that's where I'm going to sit. That would be a classic example of an invalid sukkah, because God told us, Tasa, make your sukkah kosher, v'lo min ha'asui, it shall not become made kosher through all kinds of side maneuvers. Here, the guy never actually built walls or built schach, he just carved out a middle and left walls and left schach, and that's what you're not allowed to do. Now you might think, well, that's never going to apply to me. Here's a couple examples of where it could be a problem. Number one, let's say a guy puts schach up on his frame and then later builds the walls. Schach first and then walls. Because schach was sitting on the frame, and then he put up the walls later. Well, that would be possibly an example of tasa v'lo min ha'asui. God told you to make your sukkah, and that means place schach on top of existing walls, and you didn't do that. You stuck walls under pre-existing schach, and it's not supposed to go in that order. The schach should finalize the sukkah, and you didn't do that if you put up the frame and the schach first and then the walls. So in short, I'm saying to you, make sure to put up your walls first and then put the schach on top of it. Another example of this could be in the following situation. You want to make yourself a really good schach cover, which you're going to lift off during the rainy you're going to leave it on during the rainy times, you're going to lift it off during the sunny times, and it's a whole complicated construction, so you put it up first, and then you put your schach and your sukkah on underneath it. That would be an example, again, of where you violated today's rule. You got to make your sukkah kosher when you make it, so have your walls, put your schach on top, and then build your sukkah cover that's going to cover it, but don't stick the schach underneath the sukkah covering and then lift off the covering later, because then when you place the schach there, the schach wasn't being placed there kosher. That's the key thing right there. You got to place the schach on kosher when it goes on. One last example would be a tree that just grew over your sukkah, and it's acting as the schach of your sukkah, and it can't be because it's attached to the ground. So after the tree was totally covering your sukkah, then you snip the schach off of that tree, and that's not appropriate. If that happens, or any of these out of order things happen, there is a way to fix it. You just pick up all the schach and pop it back down. That would be a way to fix the out of orderness. If your schach went up too early, for example, and then the walls went up, and you say, uh-oh, it was done out of order. So lift all the schach back off and put it back down, and that'll make the sukkah kosher. Hope that all makes sense. Make sure to not violate these rules when building your sukkah, other your sukkah could be called invalid. Thanks for logging on. Log on again tomorrow for more. Bye-bye.